In a world full of war, Epstein files, ICE brutality, there still exists some hope. That hope resides in the shimmering smile of a bearded Muslim man who resides in Gracie Mansion. Zohran Mamdani ushers in 100 days recently. Zohran Mamdani has celebrated 100, has crossed the 100-day threshold as mayor of New York City this past weekend. He celebrated by holding a rally. I'm sorry, not a rally, but a 100-day address at the Knockdown Center yesterday, and we will be taking a look at that speech. But I have to say, as someone who resides in New York City, someone who voted for him, one of the biggest things that I think will go unaddressed because it is, in my opinion, underrated in terms of its sheer influence, and that is government demonstrating the will and the desire to actually help the people, and delivering whenever they absolutely can, right? I'm not going to sit here and say Zohran's term has been absolutely perfect. There was the unfortunate deaths of homeless people during the snowstorm, a historic snowstorm that was a little bit mismanaged. There's still questions about how this budget is going to get filled if Kathy Hochul is not going to, I don't know if that's proper English. If Kathy Hochul is not going to raise taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, he will unfortunately have to raise property taxes, which will impact, middle and lower income New Yorkers. But I think he has demonstrated in his first 100 days a desire to actually do the things that benefit the people. I can't remember during Eric Adams' 4 years in office him doing anything or him demonstrating anything that made me feel that Eric Adams had New Yorkers' best interests at heart. Just always felt like Eric Adams had his best interests at heart. And there was none more proof positive of that than all the bribes he took in office, all the times he was caught in the club, all the times he was caught with celebrities. When have you seen Zohran hanging out with celebrities in his first 100 days? I have seen him, and you can call it, cringy politician propaganda, whatever the case may be, when you see the videos of him filling potholes or talking to the community. But those things are impactful. I would much rather want to see those things than see what Donald Trump does on a daily basis or see what anyone in his cabinet does on a daily basis. Have you seen what fucking Kristi Noem's husband has been doing lately? And that all gets swept under the rug or gets ignored because we need to hyperfixate on the Muslim man in office who is showing that government can actually function for the people if there is a desire to do so, if there's a desire, a plan, and a force behind it. One of the biggest things that he will address in his speech was securing funding for universal childcare. And he keeps harking back on the filling 100,000 potholes. That may seem like a small thing to some, but in a city as big as New York, and all the shitty roads that we have, that's pretty impressive. And at this rally, he also announced the pilot program for cheaper groceries, for government-run grocery stores. So we will go ahead and take a listen to the man himself.
Good evening, my fellow New Yorkers. What a privilege it is to look out onto a room full of friends old and new. Of the incredible city workers who drive our buses, teach our children, and tend to our parks. A room full of New Yorkers. I want to thank every elected official here, whether at the city, state, or federal level. I want to thank every labor leader, faith leader, organizer, and activist who shapes the communities that make our city what it is. To put it simply, I want to thank everyone for being here. It is a Sunday night in New York City. And while some prepare for the week ahead, for many, the workday has only just begun. Tonight, in the northern reaches of the Bronx, an MTA train operator is guiding a 2 train out of Wakefield. Before that train reaches its final stop in Flatbush, it will drop off New York City Health and Hospitals nurses at 135th Street. NYCHA maintenance workers at 96th Street. CUNY staff at Franklin Avenue, Medgar Evers College. From the Power Control Center at 53rd Street, engineers will manage its path through a vast network of signals. And at every stop, at every hour of the night, the people of New York City will get off the subway and go to work.
I think one of the biggest things that you notice in Zohran's speeches is the acknowledgement and the recognition of not just saying the middle class or the lower class, whatever. He visualizes it in a way that you can place yourself in who he's talking about, or you can see the person who he's talking about when he says, "This is who I'm doing my job for."
This city does not run by accident. New York City is the greatest city.
Or rather, instead of just generalizing it to just New Yorkers, it's no, we have our New Yorkers are our nurses, our engineers, our construction workers, our police officers, our firefighters.
In the world because of the millions of people who labor tirelessly each and every day to make it so. What an immense honor it is to be your mayor, to not simply lead you, but to learn from you. 102 days ago, we stood together on the steps of City Hall, bracing ourselves against the bitter cold. 102 days ago, we stood together at the dawn of a new era. The world watched, wondering if change could really come. Across the 5 boroughs, New Yorkers waited to see if a city hall powered by the people could truly govern for the people. There were cynics then, just as there are cynics now.
There are always cynics, and especially they get a pass to be as truly Islamophobic and racist as possible. They will completely disregard anything that Zohran has done in this first 100 days. Again, he's not perfect. There have been slips along the way, but the cynics like New York Post, that fucking douchebag Sid, whatever the fuck they called him, a cockroach, they will never ever acknowledge any of the good things he does. Anybody who resides in Staten Island
said that once the hard work began, we would forget the movement of working people that rewrote what was possible in this city. Others warned that the left could debate, but could never deliver. Socialists might be able to win a campaign, they said, but we could never advance an agenda.
A bar.
Far more wanted to believe, but didn't know how. Because for too long, City Hall had not just failed to meet expectations, it had lowered them. After years of broken promises, no one in this city could be blamed for doubting that government held either the ability or the ambition to upend the status quo. Yet as I said on that freezing January afternoon to more than 8.5 million New Yorkers, we will make no apology for what we believe. I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern as a democratic socialist. Tonight, I want to talk about what we've done, not to congratulate ourselves, but as a reminder of what is possible. With what we've accomplished in 14 weeks, imagine what we can do together in 4 years. We began with a promise, universal child care. And by day 8, we delivered it.
Day 8.
To historic.
I want you to compare this again to when the president of the richest country on earth said, we can't afford to do healthcare, or we can't afford to do childcare. It's just too expensive. We're going to leave it to the states. And if they want to raise taxes for it, I'll lower taxes to match it. But it's just too much money.
$1.2 billion partnership with Governor Kathy Hochul and the
same president, by the way, that's also has a net worth in the billions of dollars. Sorry, I'll stop going.
Organizing of more than 100,000 New Yorkers during the campaign. We will not only make 3K truly universal, we will deliver free childcare for 2-year-olds for the first time in New York City history. We will begin with 2,000 children this fall, 12,000 next year, and cover every single 2-year-old by the end of 4 years.
Crazy how the mayor's over here taking care of 2-year-olds and the president's over here doing something else to 2-year-olds, if you know what I'm saying.
Tens of thousands of families will no longer have to choose between having a child and affording to live in our city. That is the change government can deliver. I think of Mallory, a young mother spending $2,000 a month on childcare. She dreamed of having another kid, but she couldn't afford it. When we announced universal childcare, she said it finally felt possible. When young parents save more than $20,000 per year, per child, that is the change government can deliver. When children get a better start, when parents can keep their jobs, when billions of dollars in workforce productivity return to our economy, that is the change government can deliver. And we didn't stop there. We're taking on the biggest driver of the affordability crisis in our city, housing. We are going after the bad landlords who violate our laws and mistreat their tenants. Since January 1st, we have won more than $34 million in settlements, judgments, and repairs for tenants. Delivered improvements to 6,070 apartments so far and issued 195,829 violations. New York City will no longer tolerate exploitation as a business model. We have held rental rip-off hearings across the 5 boroughs and heard from more than 1,600 New Yorkers, because the same tenants who have been overlooked by our politics will now be at the heart of our policies. As we protect the tenants of today, we must also build for tomorrow. That is why we have cut red tape and accelerated the construction of thousands of new units of housing. Homes that are not only affordable enough to rent, but many that will be affordable enough to buy as well. And I know there are many New Yorkers who care about the work of the Rent Guidelines Board. I am one of them. Rents are too high across New York City.
And there was a interview I think Al Jazeera gave to a landlord, I think in Brooklyn. I'm gonna see if I can find the video. And this guy's complaining about, rent freezes and all that. And he's like, I think the question that the Al Jazeera interview asked him was like, so what do you say about the fact that rent is too high in New York City? He goes, well, if I can't afford a Lexus, I'm not gonna get a Lexus or some shit like that. If I can't, and it's like, bro, the fact of the matter is that people are not choosing high rents because for shits and giggles. That's all that is being listed out in most of these neighborhoods. And these landlords don't give 2 shits about that. They don't give 2 shits about rent freezes or making sure that the people that they're renting their apartments out to can actually pay. They're just getting them shits out, right? And also coupled with the fact that their profits have risen every year for the past couple years, even with the fact including rent stabilized units. In rent stabilized units, their profits have increased year over year for the past couple years. I think it's like 6% this year.
Government can do more to address that.
But the complaint is, if they do rent freezes, is going to cut into their bottom line. Yeah, they shouldn't be profiting off the fact that people are struggling to pay their rent and they're seeing an increase in revenue from that.
I am proud of the 6 new
Oh, you know, real estate is a business, huh?
members I appointed to that independent board, and I look forward to the decision they will come to in just a few short months. No longer will city government be afraid of its own shadow. If anyone should be afraid, it is those who take advantage of working people. Over these past 102 days, as we launched a sweeping worker and consumer protection agenda, we have made clear that solidarity is not just
he cut out, or he's going to make it easier to opt out of subscriptions, so that way you don't have to constantly be paying for things that you don't use.
Slogan. It is a practice. When NYSNA nurses went on strike, I was proud to join them on the picket line. And those nurses didn't back down until they won the better wages and safe working conditions they deserved. We will stand with workers who have so often stood alone. We have returned more than $9.3 million to workers, consumers, and small businesses. Nearly $100,000 every single day we've been in office. We've expanded protected time off for more than 4 million workers, reinstated nearly 10,000 wrongly deactivated delivery workers, and issued nearly 60,000 compliance warnings across our city.
Actually, I did get a check in the mail from Starbucks that I used to work for wages that are back pay or some shit like that. And I didn't 100% look into it as to like when exactly this happened, but it's happened during Zohran, so I'm gonna give this nigga the credit. I don't know if the lawsuit happened beforehand, but shit, I got a check in the mail when Zohran was mayor, so he can get the credit. Fuck Eric Adams.
And throughout it all, we have taken on the junk fees and subscription traps that afflict far too many New Yorkers. No longer can someone charge you a hidden fee for the hotel you book or make it impossible to cancel a gym membership.
Bro, the fact that you can't cancel a gym membership over the phone, diabolical. You're gonna make me go in there to the gym when I already don't want to go, and you're gonna make me talk to, not you, but the manager to get my shit canceled, and they're gonna be like, oh, but we could throw in another month we'll throw in next month for free, and we'll drop it from $24.99 to $9. No, bitch, I'm not going to your gym. Cancel my shit now. You're gonna make me go through that process? Evil.
As we set the global standard for protecting consumers, we will also ensure that New York City remains the global center of business.
Shines.
We want to build the strongest economy that our 5 boroughs have ever seen. And we are on our way. New York City continues to lead office recovery nationwide. Venture capital investment in our city reached $11.1 billion in the first quarter of this year.
Oh yeah, all the billionaires that said they were going to leave as soon as Zohran became mayor didn't go anywhere. And as he just said, venture capital investments are up 11%. So
here, the strongest quarter in 5 years. Labor force participation is at an all-time high. And yet we know that if we want our city to continue to grow, we must deliver the conditions for exactly that. Public safety is at the top of the list. Make no mistake, our approach to public safety is working. Since we took office, murders have hit record lows. There has not been a murder on Staten Island in more than 180 days. Crime in our city is down.
it has been going down.
The NYPD has taken more than 1,000 guns off of our streets since January 1st. Together with the crisis management system, we are on pace to deliver the lowest levels of shooting in our city's recorded history. And there is always more to be done. Our administration will approach public safety with a whole-of-government approach. That is why on day 78, we were proud to announce the creation of New York City's first ever Office of Community Safety. It will devise new approaches to the gun violence and mental health crises that stretch across our city. This commitment to safety extends to making our city safer and smoother for the New Yorkers who navigate our streets. On the third day of our administration, we announced that we would install protected bike lanes along the entirety of McGinnis Boulevard. one of the most dangerous roads in New York City, protecting the thousands of New Yorkers who use it every single day. We took action to lower speed limits across thousands of school zones citywide. 438 children have been killed in traffic crashes in our city since 2000. We will not accept this as normal. And as we prepare for the World Cup, we are delivering major street upgrades, including a redesign of 9th Avenue and expanded bike lanes and pedestrian spaces across downtown Manhattan.
Bro, that traffic is going to be diabolical. I wish I could just get, I don't know how many weeks of the World Cup it is, but goddamn, that traffic is going to be insane.
Throughout every day of this work, we have contended with a historic budget deficit larger than even that of the Great Recession. Unlike those who came before us, we will budget with transparency and accountability. As we have responded to this crisis, I have thought often of the Margaret Thatcher quote. The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. If anything, my friends, it seems that you eventually need a socialist to clean up the mess. On January 1st, I told New Yorkers that City Hall would hold a singular purpose: to make this city belong to more of its people than it did the day before. For 102 days, we have endeavored to do exactly that, delivering both public goods and public excellence. Buses will run faster on Fordham Road. Children play in a new recreation center in East Flatbush, honoring the legacy of Shirley Chisholm. Childcare centers are opening in Western Queens and Staten Island and the South Bronx. That is the change that government can deliver. And it is the change that democratic socialism can deliver. I know there are many who use socialist as a dirty word, something to be ashamed of. They can try all they want, but we will not be ashamed of using government to fight for the many, not simply the few.
Or using government to enrich themselves.
We will not be ashamed of adding more heat pumps to NYCHA buildings in the Rockaways, or building more supportive housing in Harlem, or standing steadfast alongside our trans neighbors. We will not be ashamed of investing in youth mental health clinics, or working to close Rikers, or fighting for immigrants targeted by ICE. To any New Yorker, whether you're under attack from the federal government's cruelty or suffocating under the affordability crisis, we will stand beside you. Because government is a series of choices, and socialism is the choice to fight for every New Yorker. To extend democracy from the ballot box to the rest of our lives. We are hardly the first socialists to embrace good governance. 110 years ago, the city of Milwaukee elected a mayor named Daniel Webster Hone. Hone was considered young for the job, only 35 years old when he took office. I know, crazy, right? More importantly, Hone made no apologies for being a socialist. Mayor Hone knew then what we know now. The worth of an ideology can only be judged by its delivery. As Emil Seidel, the socialist mayor who came before Hone, once said, their entire governing philosophy was simple: go after it and get it. Under Mayor Hone, Milwaukee built the greatest public park system in the nation and weathered the Great Depression better than almost any other American city. Under Mayor Hone, Milwaukee purged corruption and graft, built the first municipally sponsored public housing development in the nation, and transformed the city's sewage disposal system.
Sexy stuff, guys.
Just as we do, that to deliver this great society, we should tax the rich.
Kathy Hochul, where you at?
Today, we know
Nah, look at the ASL interpreter in the top right, bro. If this is tax the rich in sign language, bro, tax them niggas, tax them niggas, tax them niggas.
But for years, Milwaukeeans knew them simply as leaders who delivered. It's time we bring that to New York City. And yes, that means you too, Giannis. Come join the Knicks next year as we defend our title.
Damn, not the Giannis call out. In case you didn't know, Giannis is either part of an ownership group or the primary landlord for apartment buildings in New York City that have faced some violations.
In all seriousness, as I've said time and again, there is no problem too big, no task too small. Universal child care was a problem deemed too big to take on. Standing up for workers against corporations was a problem too big to take on. Building more homes, lowering crime to historic levels, and defending tenants against bad landlords, these were problems too big to take on. But here's the truth. Nothing is too big for New York City to take on.
All right, I'm going to end it right there because... Oh, and then, yeah, that's actually perfect because Bernie comes out a little bit after that. But I wanted to go into his Al Jazeera interview if I could find it. Al Jazeera.
Always trust.
Well, welcome to New York's City Hall. It's where the mayor is based. And 100 days ago, it was a very different picture here as
Richard Gaisford
gathered round this building to welcome Zohran Mamdani to his
I walked
new
past
job.
that building
It was his
on
first
the day of his inauguration.
as mayor.
I had
He
work.
was 34 years old.
Slamming First Lady.
The city's first Muslim mayor, and we're here to catch up with him on what those 100 days have been like in his first sit-down interview with Al Jazeera. Thank you for having us here today.
Very welcome.
100 days. It's a marker that you've set, but so many politicians I meet see it as something more of a curse than a blessing. Because it gives the opposition a good chance to say what you haven't done. Are you worried about this 100-day mark?
I think it's an opportunity. I think you have to embrace these kinds of markers because it allows us an opportunity to provide a glimpse into what these 4 years will be like. And as we're coming to that 100-day mark, we've really sought to show that we embrace this understanding of no problem too big, no task too small. So in the same period of time that we've secured a $1.2 billion agreement with the governor to deliver a path to universal childcare, 2,000 seats of free childcare for 2-year-olds this year, 12,000 next year, a seat for every 2-year-old by the end of 4 years, is also the same period of time where we fill 100,000 potholes. These are all part of the same thing.
And that money, the 1.2 billion, came very quickly in the first week.
Day 8.
So that
yes.
was ka-ching first off. But I mean, is it easy on the campaign trail to promise, but the reality is that much harder to deliver?
Well, I think it is difficult, but nothing that is worth celebrating should be easy. These are the things that New Yorkers need.
Nothing that is worth celebrating should be easy. Another bar.
Because we're talking about a city of immense wealth, the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, where 1 in 4 New Yorkers are also living in poverty. And after housing, it's childcare costs that are pushing New Yorkers out of the city. So when we ask ourselves, how can we make it easier to raise a child in the city? The answer always comes back to childcare, because it costs a family about $20,000 a year per child. And so when you make that free, you transform what's possible in the city.
So there's nearly 500,000 under 5-year-olds in New York City, but just 2,000 places coming with this first tranche that you've announced. Is it enough? I mean, will people actually be impressed by that?
I think this is the reason that this is worth celebrating is that it is the first step.
Right.
And that we have 2,000 seats this year, 12,000 seats next year, and then a seat for every single 2-year-old by the end of 4 years.
Yeah, the goal is to
Senator
get everybody
Elizabeth Warren
covered.
Often talks about childcare as infrastructure. I think it's an important way to think about it because when you are delivering these seats, you're also building out new relationships between the city and vendors and contractors, whether they're providing the services at a home-based setting or a center-based setting or school-based setting. We cannot just snap our fingers and have the infrastructure
everything
ready.
there, right?
We want to build something that's durable and that lasts lasts.
Now, you talked about potholes.
Yes.
I mean, potholes is something that just annoys so many people.
Yes.
You know, whether you're a cyclist, whether you're a car driver, whether you're just a pedestrian putting your foot into something wet.
I'm still waiting to find a pro-pothole person.
You've not
I
found
can't
one
find
yet.
them. If you're watching.
And again, I mean, you've made it look easy. 100,000
Stop being so
potholes
likable,
filled
goddammit.
in less than 100 days. How is it possible to do that? Because there's a government back home where I come from in Britain that I'm sure would like to know, and right the way around the world too.
Well, we have something, a secret sauce here in New York City, which is our municipal workforce. There are more than 300,000 New Yorkers who work for this city, and they are the beating heart of everything that has been impressive about these last 100 or so days. We've seen when it comes to the 100,000 potholes, these are the hardworking men and women of our Department of...
And I think one thing that gets swept under the rug or gets missed is how impressive it was how they handled the second wave of snow that the city got and how quickly almost all of it got taken care of. That was extremely impressive.
Transportation. I actually was just
There was definitely a marked improvement between the first batch of horrible snow we got versus the second one.
on Staten Island with them to fill that 100,000th pothole in ourselves. And what we've learned is that this is the most potholes that have been filled in this city in this period of time for over a decade. And it's not the end of their work. After they finish filling potholes, they're going to get to the structural cause of a pothole and repave more than 1,000 miles of roadway across the city, which is the distance between New York City and Miami.
So it's small things that in turn can make a big difference?
Yes, and I think if you want someone to believe in the promise of a transformative vision of universal childcare, of fast and free buses, you have to first deliver on the thing that diminishes their faith on a daily basis. It may not seem like much, but if you are driving your car or you are riding your bike and you hit the same pothole every single day, why would you trust city government in its ability to deliver something
big
that
stuff,
you've never seen
right,
at that scale when it can't even do this? So for us, it really gets back to this tenet of what was initially called
It's like almost
sewer
like a feedback
socialism, what we
loop.
now think of in some ways as sidewalk socialism, that to deliver on the most expansive part of your vision, start with the things that are causing people to lose their faith.
So you can fill potholes, and you've proved it, but you can't fill the budget black hole.
Damn.
And that is, I mean, that
Damn,
is seriously
Richard.
big, right?
Yeah.
That's more than $5 billion
Yes.
that you are missing.
It was actually $12 billion, and they were able to cut it down to 5. Thank you, Mayor Adams,
Run
who is now an Albanian citizen.
this city at the moment. Does that keep you up at night?
It is definitely a source of anxiety for any of us who are here in city government, because this is the largest fiscal deficit that our city has seen since the Great Recession. And frankly, it dwarfs even that. We have brought that deficit down to $5.4 billion. And it is now the subject of conversations we're having with our partners at the state level in Albany. We're encouraged
the
by those
rich.
conversations, and we've put forward
Kathy, all you got to do is just tax them an increase of 2%. 2% on the richest New Yorkers versus increases of 10% or more in property taxes on the middle class. Do the right thing, Kathy.
a vision, which is that we need to get out of a structural crisis such as this with a structural solution. And that means taxing the wealthiest New Yorkers, the most profitable corporations, that little bit more, and ending the drain that has long characterized the city and the state's
Which
fiscal
other
policy.
cities already
So those
implement.
wealthy people, they see it as a war on wealth, that you want to take another 2% for those who earn over $1 million. Big companies would see less in their profits. You're happy
Oh
with
no.
Well, I would say that this is also what it means to provide world-class services in a world-class city. We are so thankful for everyone who calls the city home. We want to make it a place where you can afford it no matter how much money you make. And part of that is ensuring that we resolve a fiscal crisis without putting it on the backs of working and middle-class New Yorkers. And as you said, we're
And that should be something that gets replayed over and over and over and over and over again, because anytime you hear about this budget cap, it's Mamdani's going to raise it to property taxes. Mamdani wants to raise their property taxes. The primary goal is to increase taxes on the richest New Yorkers and the wealthiest corporations. That is the primary goal. In order to fill that gap, one of two things have to happen. Either that happens or the property taxes go up, and the only person who is responsible for that decision is Kathy Hochul.
talking about increasing personal income taxes by 2% on New Yorkers who make $1 million or more a year. We're talking about the most profitable corporations. This isn't, somebody who is making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, or a small business that's just about breaking even. This is about those who are making enough money that they can afford to pay a little bit more so that the city can be on a firm financial footing.
And you've just announced today that 62% of the people living here don't really meet the true cost of living in their incomes.
That's about 5 million New Yorkers. This is the most
I'm one of them, and I make a decent amount of money living as a single man in my mid-20s.
expensive city in the United States of America. And we have to take every single tool that we have to make it more affordable. Because what we've seen is that in that same report, it revealed working class New Yorkers are 4 times as likely to leave this city than wealthy New Yorkers. For all of the conversation about a potential exodus as a result of changing fiscal policy, there's a real exodus
of people who can't afford to live here.
Taking place for years. And it's also one that has disproportionately impacted certain sets of New Yorkers. From 2000 to 2020, 200,000 black New Yorkers left this city.
And also your frontline workers, your healthcare professionals, your paramedics, your police, your firefighters. I mean, all of these people are leaving the city because they can't afford to live here.
Yeah, a lot of people ended up living in Jersey and just commuting.
Feel it when you go around the city.
Jersey or PA?
I'm currently getting allergy shots so that my wife and I can get cats. And every week I go for 2 shots, one here. And the other week I was in the elevator going up for the shot, and a nurse across from me let out a deep sigh. And I asked her, how's your day? She said, it's good, but it's not over yet. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, when the shift is done, I have to get back home. I said, how long is your commute? She said, 2 hours. And I asked her where she lived, and it was out of New York State. That's how far people are traveling to find a place that they can afford to rent. They're living in Connecticut, in Jersey City, they're living in Pennsylvania because they can't afford a place here anymore.
And that's not sustainable,
no.
Is it? Because, I had a friend I was speaking to about this very thing, needed elder care for his mother. They had to come from 2 hours away because of that very reason. They can't afford to live in this city.
And then you end up living somewhere that's a bit more remote and may not have the same resources that you may, like you're saying, the elder care that you may need, and that New York City has to offer. And imagine traveling 2 hours every week for an appointment or whatever the case may be to get the kind of care you need.
It's going the wrong way. How do you turn it around?
Well, I think at the core of it,
make
you
things
have to
more
make
affordable.
The focus of your work delivering for working class New Yorkers and making this a city that working class New Yorkers don't just build, but can also live in. Because if we do not do this, we will reduce this city into a museum of a place where working class people could once live. We want it to be a living, breathing testament to the possibility for working class New Yorkers.
So should the big banks, the big corporations that headquarter here, should they be paying more?
Yes,
I do think
wholeheartedly
so.
yes.
The most profitable corporations.
There's no reason why not when their profits are increasing year over year.
They can afford to do so not for the sake of it, but because this money will then be put back into that same city that we all live in, and that is at the heart of this. And
the people that work for those companies can actually afford to live in the very city that they are working for, which will also improve, profits for the small businesses that are in the area, for the mom and pop coffee shops and the pastry shops and all this other shit. Like, if you want people to report back into the office, maybe make their commute a little bit shorter if they can actually live closer to the place that they work.
We as socialists believe in the importance of public service and public goods. We know that at its core is a recognition of the importance of public excellence. We want to make clear that every dollar in our city budget is a dollar being spent at its best possible use. We want to convince people to stay here not through a rhetorical debate, but rather through the services they see. And potholes are one example of that. The other example here is childcare, it's housing, it's public transit.
But you were saying that you haven't got the money yet from state, and that you need permission from them, in effect, to raise these taxes. Can you persuade them that that's going to happen? I mean, if not, you're stuck. You are really stuck at the moment.
I'm encouraged by the conversations we've been having with the state. The state has a budget that is technically due on April 1st, but those conversations tend to continue, and that's what's happening right now. And what I'm heartened by, frankly, is that for a long time, the relationship between the mayor of New York City and the governor of New York State has been one that has been quite tense, especially when you look at the predecessors in these positions. The relationship I have with our governor is one that's far more productive, and I've been heartened by the fact that our governor has made a commitment already for $1.6 billion to the city's fiscal health, as well as that $1.2 billion towards the universal child care plan.
Tell me about your relationship with the president, because that's an important one too. You have
I
the
love
second
Zohran.
hardest job
That's
in
my buddy.
America.
John Lindsay said so, yes.
He has the hardest job in America. Does he help or hinder you?
You know, I've been appreciative of the conversations I've had with the president. They've been ones that have been productive.
One of the conversations being that, and I cannot remember the person's name, but he called Trump about ICE abducting a New Yorker, and she was released within 24 to 48 hours.
And ones that have focused on the city that we both love, which is New York City. And in those conversations, we are candid with each other about places of disagreement, of which there are many, but also looking for where are the places that we could work together. In this last meeting that we had in the Oval Office, I presented the president with a plan that would build the most amount of housing units in a single development since the mid-1970s. This would be 12,000 homes in Queens. It would generate more than 30,000 jobs. The president was interested. That's a conversation that...
Oh, well, building houses. I know a thing or two about houses, and let me tell you something about houses. No black people.
Continues. And in the midst of that, I also made clear to the president my continued opposition to ICE raids, the nature of them as cruel and inhumane, and the fact that the morning of that meeting, ICE had detained a Columbia student.
Yep.
And after I spoke with the president about that, I mentioned a few other individuals who'd been detained in or around Columbia over the last few months and years. He then called me 30 minutes after the meeting and told me that he had made the decision to release that Columbia student. She is now released, as well as 2 additional cases which have had
So
action
you
been
have
taken.
clout with the president. He's listening to you.
Well,
You've
I can
got
just tell you that
clout,
we've had
as
those
the Gen
conversations. I've
Zs
been
say.
heartened by the results.
And do you trust him that he will deliver for New York?
I think we have to continue to have an active conversation. And my job as the mayor of the city is not to agree with the president, but it is to advocate for this place that we both love.
And when you next meet with him, what will you say to him about his leadership at the moment and what you're seeing of the direction he's taking this country, specifically with the conflict in Iran?
Well, I've made clear my very
Opposition,
deep
yeah.
opposition to this war in Iran. It is an opposition
Which he
not
got
just of a
crucified for
procedural
by the
nature
fucking
or a
right-wing
political
media.
nature, but frankly, of a
No
moral
shocker.
nature. We are speaking about a war that has killed thousands of civilians.
165
a war that is
schoolgirls.
deeply unpopular across the city and across this country, not just because of what we are seeing it result in, but also because it is utilizing tens of billions of dollars to kill people, money that could otherwise be spent on making life easier for people across the city and this country. And the very things that I often speak about that are necessary for working class New Yorkers that we are told are impossible or unrealistic, they would cost a fraction of this tens of billions that we're seeing. And
Does that frustrate you, that you're watching this money, $900 million a day being spent on the war, where you have projects which cost much less that could make a
Right.
huge difference? Does that frustrate you?
I think it should frustrate all of us. You know, I mean, Tupac said it decades ago. It continues to be true about the fact that we always seem to have money for war, but
can't
not
feed
to
the poor.
feed the poor. And that is not the way that politics should be. That is not what Americans want politics to be.
War in Iran could fund, currently the war in Iran could fund like free buses several times over, could fund the child care program, could fund, several housing projects, could probably even fund a transportation project or 2. That's how much money we've spent in just over a month in Iran. And yet the entire right-wing media sphere and all the pundits and detractors, they will say socialism doesn't work. Zohran is over-promising. None of these things are doable. None of these things are affordable. President himself said they can't afford childcare. But in a month, dropping God knows how many missiles on innocent people, and we've gotten the Strait of Hormuz closed twice. And now we're doing a double blockade on the blockade.
And
Excellent governance.
at the heart of any war is a dehumanization. And it is a dehumanization that is never confined just to the war. I spoke recently to a young Muslim woman who had been attacked on a subway platform. And she told me that before her attacker threw her to the ground, the first thing he told her was, "I wonder how many Iranians we killed today." That's the dehumanization that we are allowing to proliferate in our country.
I want to ask you about that racism and that kind of nastiness that you are seeing and witnessing, that you, I know, have witnessed. Where is that narrative coming from? I was in New Jersey filming last week, and a man told me that my country, the United Kingdom, was being taken over by Muslims. I had a frank and pretty deep conversation with him. Couldn't persuade him otherwise. But where is that narrative coming from?
You know, I think that there is a real rise in not just misinformation, but also a hysteria that comes through what our social media algorithms incentivize and also what our politics has begun to incentivize. And I do not let it dissuade me from the job at hand. I do not let it distract me from the fact that most New Yorkers do not feel this way. It is, however, something that has become a part of our politics. And to be candid with you, it is not exclusive to any one political party. We have allowed this kind of bigotry to permeate across the entirety of our politics. And there have been too many who have sought to characterize their embrace of this bigotry as if it is the embrace of a realistic, necessary kind of politics.
And do you think this conflict is driving it even more?
Oh, 100%.
It almost
100%.
get a sense from some of these Pentagon briefings of a religious war that's going on.
Absolutely.
You know, I can just tell you that my heart broke when that young woman told me what her attacker had said to her. And it broke because she was someone who has always known herself of belonging to this city. And the rest of the phone call, she used it to emphasize the importance of the City University of New York and advocating for increased funding. And I so loved it because that's what we should have been speaking about. But instead, here was a young person who had been reduced to their religious identity, who had been attacked because someone had learned through our politics that Muslims could be considered as if imposters, as if an imposition on this place that we all call home, when in reality all of us belong here. This is all the home for all of us.
Do you think you can change that in 4 years?
You know, I think it is a hard task to
Zohran, do you think you can solve Islamophobia in your 4 years as mayor?
to take on bigotry, but I think it's a necessary and an urgent one. I think that what really gives me a sense of inspiration is the fact that I am not the first looking to tackle that kind of bigotry. There are so many who have done so for years in the city, and I can learn much from them.
Let's think about the advice that you might want to be giving the Democrats right now, because we're heading towards that midterm. And it seems that it's a party in the wilderness, largely at the moment, not quite sure where to.
No, they have a direction. They know exactly what they want to do. Their platform is fuck Hassan Piker, and that's going to get them reelected.
Go. Have you set an example and a pathway for them to follow?
You know, I will leave that to others to come to that conclusion. What I will say is what I've learned over this course of time being in office. Chief among it is the fact that the only real majority in this country and in this city is that of the working class. And too many working class New Yorkers, working class Americans, do not see themselves and their struggles at the heart of our politics. When I walk around this city, the questions people ask me are about how they can afford housing, childcare, public transit, even.
So does it need a new party for them to believe it? I mean, because you've set a new path. But if the Democrats don't follow what you've done, do you think perhaps a new party is required to be the
I feel like that's
opposition?
the answer that a lot of us, or a lot of people in the public political sphere, are choosing to not push forward. Is that if neither party are serving your interests, we could just create a new party. And if the powers that be, you know, people who have that kind of influence desire to do so, they could form a new party, a people's party, or boost the working families party, or whatever the case may be. If neither of the two major parties are, the Republicans certainly aren't serving anybody's interest. The Democrats are just, you know, kind of just sitting on their hands, not doing shit.
This country.
I think that there is enough.
That's like my one, I guess, gripe or disagreement with Hassan is he wants to work within the frameworks of the Democratic Party. And there was a clip of him and Giannis Varoufakis, where Giannis is asking him, like, why do you even bother with trying to help save the Democratic Party? You should just form a vanguard party, and you know, start off with this platform of things that you want, instead of having to reform the Democrats to get to where the country needs to be. Because clearly the Democratic Party has no interest, and the people that fund them have no interest in changing the status quo.
hope within the history of our existing party. When I think about the greatest mayor in New York City's history, Fiorello LaGuardia, his relationship with FDR, the New Deal, all that it presented then, we are missing that now, and what we need to do is to ensure that this is a Democratic Party that doesn't have to look to the history books to find a sense of ambition that matches the scale of a crisis, but a party that can finally look at working class Americans struggling and say, we actually have something that we're fighting for, not just something we're fighting against.
Can I just ask you about media ownership?
All right, I'm going to clip the interview there. If y'all like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all next time. Y'all be good.